Coming to you from a portable microphone, this is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Dan Balser, and I'm in the library at the Creative Circus on my iPhone with my earbuds in my earbuds, talking across country with a good old friend, Rob Lambrechts. And we haven't spoken or seen each other since I ran into him on the street in San Francisco. I want to say it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, as he was going for a run at lunch. I think that's what happened. And we said hi, and it's always great to see him. And it's always great to talk to him. And I'm excited to have this conversation. And I just want to say before this starts that to all the people who have asked to try to find a way to get someone on this podcast that doesn't live in Atlanta or isn't visiting Atlanta, I'm extremely reluctant to do these conversations when they're not face-to-face. I think the only way to do this well is to sit in the same room, except for when we're talking with friends or if I have a relationship. And I think that Rob and I could have a phone call, and I'm hoping that you guys on the other end listening to this are going to realize that this just sounds a lot like Rob and I are sitting in the same room together. I hope it comes off like that. So Rob and I first met when he was a copywriting student at the Creative Circus, and since the Creative Circus is not on his LinkedIn resume for some reason, which is one of my 13 questions for him, we met in class whenever he was here. I want to say it was sometime around 2003, 2004. Rob left the Creative Circus as an incredibly talented and intelligent, thoughtful copywriter who always impressed me as a guy who saw subtleties in work, understood the power of intelligent communication, and I think was one of these kind of writers that I kind of feel could have done a lot of different things with his life and chose to apply his intelligence to brands and marketing. Left the Creative Circus and went to AKQA in San Francisco, where he was there for a little over 2 years before going to BBH. And I'd actually forgotten that Rob had gone to BBH before going to Pereira and Odell. Rob and his partner, Jason Apoliski, were the very first hires that PJ Pereira took with him when he started Pereira and Odell. That was 10 years ago in San Francisco, where he has been spent really the lion's share, the major majority of his career at Pereira and Odell, and has now been recently promoted as of this month to Chief Creative Officer. And I'm excited to talk to Rob because I find it a challenge to keep up with him mentally, and I find it a challenge to keep him entertained. So I just want to say thanks for listening, and Rob, thank you so much for setting aside the time to talk to me today.
Thank you. That is quite an introduction. I genuinely appreciate that, and I think it's going to be great. I think Dan, you are one of my favorite people to talk to. I've always enjoyed the experience, and I will never forget the days sitting in your office bullshitting about this or that or whatever it was. This brings me back to that, and I could not be happier to having this conversation.
It's funny you say that because I'm feeling a little bit worn out mentally because I had an hour-long conversation in my office a little while ago with a couple of students. Namwan and Yelena were in my office, and we were having this long conversation about all sorts of stuff that's kind of like only tangentially about advertising. So I have a question for you. Like when I was going through all your background and my recollections of you as a student, do you hear people say good things about you ever?
No.
I'm not saying that you don't, but does one ever hear that? You know what I mean? It's weird.
No. Just, the question, do I hear people say good things about me? People.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, people may. I am so self-conscious that I refuse to hear it. I think that comes from my Catholic upbringing, where you're never quite doing the right thing, and whatever you're doing is sort of wrong in some way. So I get deeply uncomfortable hearing people talk about me. Actually, when people talk about me positively, I am way more uncomfortable than getting negative feedback. I'm more comfortable getting negative feedback than I am getting positive feedback.
You don't believe it, or you're skeptical that they mean it, or it makes you feel uncomfortable? Like, I understand that, but I wonder where that comes from. That's kind of interesting.
I don't know exactly where it comes from, but this isn't totally unique to me, but I've heard a lot of creative people that I respect talk about this and in creativity. I think a lot of times you feel like a fraud because you don't really know where it came from. You don't know how to get it back. You don't know all of these things. And there's always this fear that one day it's just going to go away, or all those people are wrong. Having that insecurity is something that's inside me, and I think it's something that this is not necessarily for everyone, but for me, I think has been beneficial to me because nothing I ever do is good enough. So always thinking of how to make it better, and that is beneficial for me. It has been beneficial for me in this industry, and just being a creative professional. That is, I think it's been useful. It's sort of painful, but it can be useful.
It's really interesting, though. That's a very interesting thought. The way you just said that made me wonder if, like, people feel like they're going to be found out as a fraud. I wonder if it's because the thing that you thought of becomes bigger than it deserved to be. Like, it was just an idea that I had with my partner in a room one day, and then it became this sort of important cultural or business thing that I'm getting more credit than that deserved, having just been a thought that I had or something. Like, and I kind of feel like people are sort of held up to a pedestal because things get skewed maybe in too good a way. I don't know. Do you really believe that, like, you're going to be found out as I hear this all the time on the podcast, really successful people thinking they're going to get found out, like that they're a fraud or whatever. Do you really have that internal fear?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think if there's any potential clients out here, I don't think I'm a fraud. I'm not selling snake oil.
No.
The idea that I think it's more of a, it's really, it's tough to know where these things come from, right? Like, and what you were saying is, like, it was just an idea in my head, right? It was just this idea. It was just this thought. I said it. I made this other person in the room laugh, and all of a sudden now we're talking about it more. And then now and the whole agency is behind it, and now a client is spending real money on it. I think that's one thing that we in this business on the creative side forget, that, like, this is real, actual money that people are spending. And now right. I will never get over the day when you going from having an idea to walking on the set of a shoot and, like, seeing all these people working and, like, making this thing, and you're just like, this all happened because of an idea that came out of my head. Like, that sense of wonderment, I think is amazing, and it will never. I will never, still never to this day, get over it. I think that is always one of the, that is one of the things I love about this job, is, like, you have an idea and then you see it come to reality, is amazing. So
that's so cool. All right, so I've never done this way before, but the way that I wrote questions, I wrote down 13 different conversation starter questions for you, and rather than going through them in order, because there's no real order to them, do you want to just throw out a number between 1 and 13, and we'll just make our way through them?
8. All
right, so 8. Why is this Creative Circus not listed under education on LinkedIn?
I don't have any idea. I had no idea it wasn't until you mentioned it. I will change that. I think really and truly,
because it's called the Creative Circus.
I've gotten over the name. I will say, when I first got there, I paid for school myself. I bartended at night and paid for school myself, and always writing that check every quarter to the Creative Circus was always a little bit of a pain. Was a little hurdle to get over. But I personally made my peace with it, and I think the school has more than enough reputation and credibility in in the industry. Outside of the industry, it's still a little weird. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think chalk it up to I am not good at social media. That is not my specialty. I think probably just more of I just forgot to put it in there. But I will remedy that.
That's fair enough.
Because
you went to Miami of Ohio, right?
I did go to Miami of Ohio.
Right, so that's a legit school. That's a real legit academic. I mean, I thought maybe you're like, yeah, creative circus. I don't want to be associated with it. No. Miami University is pretty. All right, so that's number 8. You want to do 1 through 7 or 9 through 13?
9 through 13.
9, 10, 11, 12, or 13? Give me one.
13.
All right, the last one. Okay, so I mentioned at the top that you were recently promoted from executive creative director, co-executive creative director, to chief creative officer. Is the new title a new job, or is it the same job just properly recognized?
No, it is a new job. It's a much different job.
How?
I keep joking to people that I'm pretty sure my job now is to talk. I feel like I get into the agency at 9 and just talk straight till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But I think it is my responsibilities at the agency are different. For one, I now oversee New York and San Francisco, whereas before I was just in San Francisco. And I think one of the harder things for me with this job is getting a little bit out of the weeds of this office and dealing with this office, because I love this office and I love this people and the people in this office. And but part of what my job is now is to empower the really smart, talented people we have in both offices. So it's a different job in that my job is really now more to help, not necessarily to have the idea, but to recognize the ideas, recognize the interesting parts of the ideas, help those ideas really come to life and the best way as possible. And truly, not to get into the other side of this business that I think probably most of your listeners don't want to get into, but the actual business side of what an agency is, because theoretically we are still businesses. But has
that been a learning curve for you, or were you always kind of aware of that, at least, sort of behind the scene, in the back of your mind? Has that been an adjustment for you?
It was an adjustment a while ago. I think you learn these things sort of slowly over time. I think and I truly, to be honest, I don't want our creatives thinking of that. I want especially our junior, our mid-level, even our senior level teams. I want them to be the ones pushing up against all of the things. Like, I think, to be honest, as you get older, as you become more responsible, like part of my, you become more responsible for the agency and clients and things, you get more conservative. Like, I don't think there's a way not to. But part of what I think I want from creatives is to be that fire, to be the people who are constantly pushing up against you and pushing you out of maybe a comfort zone or what, because maybe this isn't for everyone, but it's easier to kind of fall into that place, and to always have people who are pushing you and pushing what's new, what's cool, what's interesting, being that force in your life, and giving them the space to actually do it, and you're going to listen to them is important. So, going back to your original point, I don't want our creative teams thinking of that. I want them to be thinking of. I want them to be doing the thing we're paying them to do, which is be creative, inspiring people. As you get older, as you move up to like the creative director level, that becomes a part of it. And Not only understanding the learning curve for me, to be honest, was less about understanding an agency's business, but really trying to understand our client's business more. Like when you're a young creative, it's like any idea that you could do is like that might be the coolest idea in the world, but these ideas, like, yeah, they're going to need to change their supply chain to make that happen. And like, you don't think about what the reality of that is, but that's a lot of money. But like, as like when you get up to that creative director level, like really being partners with your clients, understanding their business and having ideas that are going to move their business forward in ways that are not, if the reason it's just a cool idea, to me, that's not good enough, right? Like we need to be having ideas that are more, being genuine partners to our clients and having ideas that are moving their business forward. Great creative ideas, yes, but that are effective in accomplishing a goal together.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because when you first started talking about thinking about business, I was assuming what you were talking about was the sort of profit and the bottom line of Pereira and Odell, but you're talking about now just the whole context of the agency's role internally and for their clients. That leads me to question 11, so I don't need to ask you for another number. Question 11 I wrote down was, who has been, in your opinion, Pereira and Odell's best client that you've worked on, and why?
Oh, man.
Let's just rephrase that. Who's been one of the better ones? I don't want to say best, because I don't want to say that if you don't mention a client that they're not great, but who jumps out to you as a model and why? And I'm asking the question just to let listeners think about like what makes a good relationship with an agency and a client. Why was it a good? You don't even have to name a client if you don't want to. I just thought it'd be cool to tell people who it was. But the reason being, like, what's the reason that they were great, and why is one client a pain in the ass to work on, and why is one really great to work on? I don't really care about why they're a pain in the ass. Why was one great?
Yeah, different clients have different needs and different resources. Like, so I would say what makes it, I think you hit on something there that's interesting, and it's not even necessarily like what makes a good client and a bad client. I try not to think of things in that terms. I think what I try and think of it as what makes a great relationship, because the secret to any great work comes from a great relationship. And that is something I genuinely believe is true. You hear people talk about, oh, we got to fight for this and fight for that. If you fight for everything becomes a fight, and that is a not great relationship, right? Like, so the relationship is key. And the clients, truthfully, that we've had, the best relationships that have led to the best creative outcomes are the ones that that have ambition. Any client that has ambition and courage, and because I give clients, they're the real courageous ones in the whole thing. Because they're the ones who, like I said before, they're spending real money. This is not fake money. When we like, oh, the budget's only $1 million. $1 million is a lot of money. Like, they're the ones putting their reputation on the line, really, and they're saying, I trust you, the agency, that this is going to do the right thing. So to have, I feel like a lot of the relationships that we've had with the best creative outcomes with are those ones who are ambitious, who want to, who really are, and this is kind of constantly cliche, but like looking for something different, looking for a way to do things differently, that we can sort of build on. And I always say that what I say with clients in the beginning is, the way we're going to turn this into a great relationship is, first and foremost, we're going to respect each other. We're going to respect what you have to say, that you know more about your business than we do. So your input is valuable, and we're going to listen to it. We're going to respect it. And then in turn, hopefully you're going to respect our opinion. And over time, that respect turns into trust. And when you get to the trust level, that's really, I think, where special things happen. But that doesn't happen overnight. You don't trust someone overnight. That happens over a period of time. So, I think ambitious clients that we've built the relationship where we've gotten to that level of trust, we've done special things for. I think you look at Intel or Skype or some.
I seriously, as you said the word Intel, I was writing down the word Intel.
Yeah, I mean that's a great. We did. I would say what are in my opinion. The most interesting branded entertainment series still to date. We made 4 nearly feature-length films with that client. Really ambitious, interesting. I would say what will be, as we go forward, sort of genre-defining work.
There's no question about it. I think the beauty inside is a case study about what's possible in marketing and social media, and it's absolutely bulletproof genius on so many levels. It's incredible and incredibly well done.
Yeah, I mean I believe that will be not necessarily the model of things to come, but as we get into a world where sorry, I'm going to pontificate here for you on a second, but as we get into a world where the media landscape is so incredibly fractured, where audience has become so niche, it's going to get very, very, very harder than it is today, to go out and buy an audience in a traditional way. So what I mean by buy an audience, go buy a TV spot, buy that audience. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to work harder at is building an audience. Instead of buying an audience, we're going to need to build an audience. And we're going to, I think, entertainment, you're going to see more and more brands turn to entertainment, whether that's full-length films or 5-minute shorts or a series or whatnot.
Or a live trivia game show.
Exactly.
You've got guys pouring money into HQ, building 1 million pairs of eyeballs, mostly young, and that's unbelievable to me. And my daughter said, how can they afford this? I said, they can afford it because they're building it out now to be able to sell all of these eyeballs and to sell this software to somebody that wants people like you, high school seniors. It's impossible to find them. So that's, to me, it's kind of an incredibly intelligent hacking of the system. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to have to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no really two ways about it. I think what will be, in my opinion, the elephant in the room here is the contract negotiation, the NFL contract negotiation for the broadcast rights, which is coming up in 2021 or something. And I mean, if live sports goes away from broadcast television onto an Amazon or a subscription service, what's left? And I think
that's the only, full disclosure, that's the only place I see commercials is live sports.
It's the only place where most people see commercials. Live events are really the thing that is propping up broadcast network. And I think, like most change, it seems it will seem cataclysmic at the time. But there will, when we look back, there will be small things. The trend has been going that way, I think, but most changes like that happen in a dramatic fashion. So we'll see whether it's the NFL rights or whatnot, but I feel like there will be some moment where it all shifts.
Yep. All right. So let's do another question. Give me another number. Between 1 and 12.
3.
3. Okay. This is personal.
Okay.
So I'm going to combine this with another later question. How has parenting affected your life? How's the work-life balance? And talk to me a little bit about, was there a sea change in the way that, or a shift in the way that you approached work, problem solving, or anything now being a father?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to talk about this without sounding cliche, because I think there's a series of answers here that kind of everyone gives. But I will say, overall, being a parent is amazing. It's also a huge pain in the ass and very hard. And there's moments where it's extremely difficult. So I don't want to say it's all sunshine and roses. However, I will say there's a clear point, I think, in my life where in my career that changed a lot of thinking on my end, and that was when my daughter was born, and it was a lot to do with I think if you have kids, maybe at that moment for me I realized kind of how selfish I was. I mean, I don't think I was selfish, but like really everything I'd done to that point had been for me. I'm married, but for me and my wife, like it was very, like us, center of the world existence. And
you know what I often say, I always refer to the years that Lisa and I lived in New York together before children. It's like, well, when we were single, and it's like that just slips out of my mind because like you're not really, you're living for yourself even when you're living with another person until the child shows up.
Yeah.
Hi, Aaron. I just want to say hi. Hi, Aaron. Okay.
So there was for me, there was a massive change in that. I think I really saw like this notion that when you have kids, it's terrifying that you're now responsible for someone else's well-being, and it sort of made me more motivated than I even was before to do better and to do better work and to make sure I could support that person. And then on top of that, I will say, and more like this is where it gets a little cheesy to me, I think, but it did make me more of an empathetic person. I think just kind of being able to, like really let in other people's viewpoints, really, like thinking, like just being more empathetic, to be honest, came about.
I don't think that's cheesy.
It is kind of. I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not great at talking about that stuff, but
okay, we don't have to.
No, you can. It really was like in terms of like working with other people at the agency. I would say most people who knew me pre and post, I said that they could probably sense a pretty noticeable change, and then also in the way that dealing with, working with clients, and like I was talking about before, being more of a partner, being empathetic to their problems, really, what is going on with their business, what is going on in their office, what is going on with their boss, like where can we help, and realizing that these are people, and like we treat, a lot of times it becomes an us and them thing in this business, which is completely wrong and really leads nowhere. So I think becoming more an empathetic person has made what I do for the agency better, what I do with the department better. And I don't know, you can ask Erin, my wife, who also went to the Creative Circus. That's where we met in Ron Moore's creative thinking class, the first day of Creative Circus, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. We're together because of Ron Moore, which is maybe the most terrifying thought of all time. But if had he not put us together in that group, who knows?
She's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna not let you choose numbers. I'm gonna guide this a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about PJ Pereira.
Yes.
I want to ask you two questions. Why did you follow him? How important has he been to your development? Why have you stuck with him to leave BBH? First of all, to your first hire, and then when he took you to the rooftop and said, "I'm starting a shop. I want you to come with me." Why did you make the leap of faith to go with PJ? What was it about PJ?
So let me start that with an interesting anecdote from how PJ hired me for Out of the Circus. So we had a creative portfolio review out here in San Francisco. I was 7th quarter. I wasn't even supposed to go, but went. And then was, making my rounds with my book. Showed it to, we were like in a bar. You couldn't hear anything. It wasn't a great environment to like have a conversation with someone. Showed my stuff to PJ. I didn't know this at the time. He came from Brazil like 2 weeks before. So it was really loud. His English wasn't great, but apparently he liked my stuff. And the next day he called, me and Jason and another guy, Joe Sayamon, to the office and to AKQA. And I genuinely, I don't really know what he said, but he was just very passionate about it, to the point where I, met Erin back at the hotel room, and she said, how'd it go? I'm like, I literally said to her, like, I don't really know what he was talking about, but he was very excited. And she's like, so what happened? And she's like, he offered me a job. And what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know yet. And I didn't take it right away. Went back to Atlanta, talked to people about it. Quite honestly, a lot of people at the circus told me not to. A lot of people told me, you'll get a better offer. You can go somewhere else. AKQA at that time, this was like pre-subservient chicken. So like the idea of digital was like crazy to people. Right,
AKQA at that time, I think, were basically just known for doing like the graphic user interface for Xbox.
Yeah,
it was basically digital design.
It was, and it was a lot of like website UI stuff. But I, sometimes you're like, I just believe in this person. I want to be a part of what this person's doing. So PJ, I took the job. Jason, Joe, and I all took the job. Moved out to San Francisco. Worked with PJ at AKQA. Really had the benefit of being, I would say, kind of an agency inside the agency. We were kind of cool. We were PJ's guys in a way. It was interesting looking back. I didn't realize the tension that existed with the rest of the agency. Yeah. We were not.
Good for you.
Yeah, we were not necessarily recognized as like people didn't totally want us there. They didn't understand why we're there, but we just kind of stuck with him and worked our asses off. And at that time, Jason and I were working 100-hour weeks routinely, just trying to do whatever we could. I did that for about 2 years, and then had the opportunity to go BBH. It was more of an issue of I wanted to expand my horizons to see what else was out there. And BBH is an amazing agency. And then, when PJ started the agency, he called me, told me what was going on, said he wanted me on board. And my reaction was, I don't know if this is a great idea, but, why the hell not?
So it was his passion and sort of his energy and his just frenetic creativity. You were just attracted to his passion. Is that what it was?
In the beginning, I would say, yeah. However, it goes a little deeper than that. I would say, PJ is definitely one of the most brilliant creative minds I've ever come across. The things that he says, what he does, like, I'm just like, I don't understand how that works or where that came from, or I would never think of that. And which is amazing, right? Like, that's amazing to have that opportunity. But I think the thing that has actually kept me here and with him is that PJ has a very inclusive leadership style where he's self-confident enough to let other opinions in. And PJ has never once got mad at me for challenging him. I routinely, even as like a very young junior, whatever, who didn't know shit, challenging him on things. And he never fought it. And he never got mad at it, and he always welcomed it. And we had very heated debates about things. And he listened to me sometimes. He didn't listen to me other times. And I for a lot of things, I'm like, I will never get that opportunity with someone else. I don't think so. having that ability to really have those kind of conversations with someone and someone who's open to listen and is really, to me that is sort of the height of leadership. And I've tried to, I'm very if I take one thing away from PJ, it's that, because I will never, I can't do a PJ imitation, right? Like we have very different creative minds. We work differently. We think differently. You actually, to be honest, like we're very close friends. Like I love him to death. There's no one has believed in me more creatively probably than outside of my mother, who is stuck with me and and all of that. But we're very different creative. Like we're almost on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to that. So I'll never be like him in terms of his creativity. But what I really would like to be like is to be that sort of leader that is open, that stays open to people's opinions, that really listens, that accepts that they're not always right. Just because you have a title doesn't really mean you know everything. So is that an ongoing struggle for you, or is that something that's coming naturally? Like to have someone suggest something that's completely outside what you would have expected to hear or what you wanted to do, and still being okay with that. Is that something that you're able to get your head? That's an empathy thing too, but is that becoming easy for you? I don't think you were ever that stubborn, but is that something that's easy for you? Is it easy? No, because I am
it's a learned thing.
Yeah, and I'm I always make the joke. I'm a creative person, so I'm always right. Right. Yeah, like we're all right all the time. I have that inherent. The
difference is realizing you have to realize at some point though that more than one person can be right.
Yeah.
Like, just because you're right, just because I'm right doesn't mean that you're wrong.
Exactly.
That's a huge Well, I was going to ask you what you think it was that about, if I asked PJ the same question about why is he stuck with Rob for so long, do you think he respects that you push back, or what trait about you do you think has been valuable for PJ to keep you and put you as a chief creative officer? This is a tough one too, because I'm asking you to say something good about yourself, but what do you think a valuable trait of yours has been? I mean, obviously you're complimentary, so obviously he sees something in you that he's lacking, but what do you think is your best trait, or what you think that he sees in you and why he's stuck with you for so long?
That's a great question. And one, I will be totally honest, I've never ever thought about. I don't know. I'll answer it. I won't skip it. I just haven't totally thought about it. I think I'm a pretty good creative. I'm not, I would say, I heard some screenwriter that I really like say, I might not be the best, but I'm better than most, which I kind of feel like maybe I feel like that about me. I might not be the best, but I'm pretty good at this creatively. And I think I have standards and taste, and I can have taste outside of what I necessarily personally like. So being like, it doesn't have to personally appeal to me for me to think it's good or right for a client.
Interesting.
So I think I can do that. And then I have a strange skill for a creative, which I am. I like organizational type stuff. I like getting into the management of operations. God. And how, I know people hate it, but I would say I actually like it. And I think being able to be someone who can help the department run as efficiently in a good way as possible, and giving what a lot of my job is and what a lot of things I do is I'm very conscious about putting right people in the right time to do the thing that they're great at. And a lot of times,
very interesting. I think a lot of really effective, talented, creative leaders have two brains. You have a strong left and right brain, and it's hard to find that. I mean, I think it's hard to find somebody who is a good enough, if not great creative, but also has those organizational skills. I just think they're often mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, I would say early in my career I wasn't interested in the organizational thing really at all. But as I get older, I just get curious about other things, and it's just like another way to it's another problem solving thing, to be honest. I enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy doing that for our clients, and I enjoy doing that for the agency itself. So I do have that.
So I have a question written down here, number 7. I'm going to get to that one. So we've already talked about your intelligence. I personally think you're smart. You're intelligent. Why advertising? What was it about advertising as an industry? Because I said this in the introduction, I feel like you could have done different things. I feel like there's an intellectual, almost a mechanical applied approach to your process. So what is it about this business that appealed to you from the beginning?
I will tell another true story. The only reason I got into advertising was because it was the only industry that would give me a job in the beginning. I graduated from college right after the tech bubble burst in 2001. Jobs were incredibly hard to come by. I worked in Boston for a little while in PR, and then I moved to Chicago and actually got a job as an account person. I was an account person at a small...
I think we talked about this the last time you were on the podcast.
So I was an account person at a small agency, and I was terrible at it. Really bad. But luckily enough...
You'd be good at it now, I bet. I bet you'd be good at it now.
There's still things that those like the really good ones do much better than I can, but understanding their job, I think, is interesting. So I ended up, that's how I ended up. To be honest, I came across a creative director who was like, if you wanted, I was talking to him. He's like, well, if you like this part of the business, I think he handed me the first CA that I ever saw. He's like, this is what you want to do. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And he's like, well, you got to go here. And that's why I ended up at Circus, to be honest. And then, ended up in in agencies. And I think, what's that?
What keeps you in it? What keeps you excited?
I think this is the most interesting job you can possibly have, and it's if you like thinking about different problems all of the time, and you like the challenge of working on just different problems and coming up with creative solutions for different problems, and it's never the same thing day to day. I think that's hard maybe for some people, but that's what I personally love about agency life is it's never the same every day. And then, as I get to be, as I have had the good fortune of moving up, having the opportunity to work with really smart people outside of the advertising. So getting to work with, like I was talking about before, those really motivated, ambitious clients, learning from them and getting to work with them. And it's just you get to constantly learn stuff new every day, and you get to challenge yourself every day. And it's not I will be the first one to tell you that it can be pretty tough at times. But that's the thing that always, I think, in the end keeps me going of this is just something new and exciting every day. And there's always a new, interesting, exciting challenge just around the corner. So that's why I think I like it.
Definitely. All right, a couple more questions for you. So we talked about your marriage. I want to talk about your other marriage.
Okay.
Your partnership with Jason that you guys have been together professionally for a long time. How has that evolved? How has that changed? How do you guys push each other? And can you talk about what makes a good partnership and what has sustained you guys pushing each other and being supportive and collaborative?
It's funny. Jason and I have been we're partners coming out of school. I left for a little while, went to BBH. He didn't go to BBH, but then he came to POD, and we were partners there, or here, sorry, I should say. And I say this genuinely in that Jason is the most dedicated person to the craft that he has of anyone I've ever met. If you talk about someone who cares deeply about the craft of art direction and design, it is Jason. He is amazing, and like the way he can finish work and like bring the extra detail that makes something from good to great is amazing. I would say that no one has been more influential in terms of crafting a lot of the final work that you see coming out of here than him. So, like having that in my, as a partner for forever has been amazing. I've learned a lot of things from him, just in terms of being able to talk art direction and be able to talk to art directors and like I don't speak the language, right? So being able to talk to them, get my ideas across them, what I think it needs, what I think it doesn't need, those kind of things. And then Jason and I are also very different personalities. We've definitely found a way to work together. And then, now it's to the point where like, I think we can almost know what the other one is thinking. Like, I think, in a lot of ways, like I know what he's going to say before he says it, and he knows what I'm going to say before I say it. So, we have that. I will say selfishly, I'll tell another kind of little anecdote. When we were at the circus, I was like, you know what? I just want to be partnered with someone who's going to make my stuff look amazing. And I was very active on that. Like I really wanted that, and being, selfish even with that going into the real world, like into the real industry, like I wanted a partner whose stuff like people were wowed by, and like a little bit putting my ego on the back burner, like contributing the idea, helping, craft the idea, but then really, people love pretty pictures. And your idea gets across a lot better with a great picture. And Jason has been more than influential in doing a lot of that. So
Jason was a beast. I'll never forget. And I've said this, I think, on the podcast before when he was on it, that when he graduated from Creative Circus, his portfolio looked like a design award annual. It's just absolutely unreal. I looked at it like, this looks like work from 10 different designers of the best of the year. It's just absolutely stunning, incredible. All right, so we're wrapping up. I have a couple last questions about just sort of the juniors and students coming out of school. I want to know, overarching, I just want to talk a little bit about the process of reaching out to you or like looking at books. Have you ever throughout your career looked at student books and or enjoyed it? And I often tell the story of a dear friend of mine who sent you an email and referred to you as Robbie, and you called me, you're like, who the F is this? Sending me an email calling me Robbie. Like, I always tell this email, be careful who you don't know who you're sending an email to, and don't be overly familiar just because it's easy in social media. You never know who's on the other end of this thing. And I often talk about you, but do you enjoy looking at books? Do you even do that? And do you have any advice besides respecting people's email time or whatever, for young people now coming out into the business? Yeah.
Truth be told, I don't look at a ton of student books. I trust our resource manager here in this office, who's fantastic. And what I tell her is, I trust your opinion, I trust your taste. If you want me to look at something, I'll look at it. So, I kind of leave it to her to like, I like people to, and I tell her, I don't want you to think of terms of what you think I'll like. I want you to tell me what you like. Right.
Well, that's interesting. And that's not common.
Yeah. But
I don't think that's how a lot of recruiters work. They do sort of, because I had this whole conversation with Zach Canfield from Goodby Silverstein and Partners about that. And he does run the creative director's filter through his own mind. He kind of internalizes their taste when he looks at work. But I think that's cool that you're letting somebody be an independent filter. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get into it a little bit. Like, that's kind of how I look at work too. I desperately try and communicate to our creative teams. I don't want the idea that you think that I'm going to like, right? Like,
right.
Because to be honest, I've probably had that idea, right? Like, what I'm looking for is the idea that I haven't had, right? So
great.
Give me your shot at it. Like, what do you think is interesting, right? And, if we got to navigate from there, we will. But I don't want you trying to guess what I think. And then, to be honest, that's a lot of what I try to approach clients with too, is like, I'm bringing you, I hope you trust me, I'm bringing you what I think the agency's approach to the problem is, not what I think your personal tastes are. So that's, I think that is something that, because that I think is where you get the fresh thinking. Back to your original question. I don't, if she has something that's like really interesting, or we're looking for that position, I'll definitely look. I love talking to, I will be honest, I have a harder time getting through people's books than I do just talking with them. Like, if people are in San Francisco and want to drop by the office, I would say, like, I'm always happy to have, 15, 20-minute conversation with him. I will say that one of the formative things for me, I actually never worked with this guy, but we came out here to show our books around or whatever, and Jim Lesser, who is the chief creative officer of BBDO West, I think it's, sat down and took 20 minutes with us and just talked, and like, I thought that was amazing. Like, and I've always tried to, I try and do that. So, quite honestly, I'll talk to people first and then I'll look at their book. So
no, that's cool. That's I feel the same way completely. I can't stand looking at a static screen. I'd much rather sit down with somebody and get to know them, and it's just much more fun. It's just much cooler. I will say this. This is the best conversation that you and I have had since that afternoon at Rocks. I don't know if you remember this.
I do remember this.
We sat at the bar. I remember it. It was awesome. And it honestly just makes me feel so good to say, like, I can remember the feeling sitting there talking to you about Cardinals baseball, I think, and then fast forward 10 years or whatever it is, and it just makes me feel so happy for you and so proud to see the agency and you and Aaron doing so well. And it's just awesome. It's just congratulations on the new job, and I really wish you and the family and the agency all the best. It means a lot to me that you guys are kicking so much ass out there. Way to go.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I legitimately I do remember that, and I wasn't being facetious or earlier when I said that I look at those conversations early on of like, I always valued your opinion and the way the way you, I guess I'm just not thinking about it, the way you treated me as an adult. And like, we had real conversations about things. And I think that was influential. And I think probably how I carried myself outside of the agency, of like, into agencies, is like, this is how you have adult conversations with people. Nice. And so I will awesome. Always remember that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And listeners, you can reach me at danspodcast@mac.com as always. And I'll be back again in 2 weeks with another conversation. Rob, thanks so much for setting aside time for me and the listeners. And again, give my best to Aaron and everybody at Pereira.
Thank you. Anytime.
Listeners, see you again in 2 weeks. Till then, bye.